Steve Garfein started his career in Howard Hughes Hobby Shop, where he was a member of the team that developed the today's Apache Helicopter. He was responsible for project management, technical and cost oversight of the Apache program, and corporate financial reporting. In 1980, he founded RPM Corporation. Since its founding 43 years ago, Steve's focus has been on assisting a wide range of organizations in product portfolio planning, product marketing, and new product development across a wide range of organizations, including the city of New York, UBS, Microsoft, Intel, GSA, Johnson & Johnson, and on. Steve has been a visiting professor teaching master's level courses at Oxford, Stanford University of Technology in Sydney, and Queensland. He's captain of the Army. He was a captain in the Army Field Artillery before joining Hughes. And Steve has business degrees from UCLA, go Bruins, and that other school with spoiled children. If you join me in welcoming Steve Garfein, who's going to talk to us about Boeing today. Come on, Steve, you're on. Watch my wires here.
Yeah, got it. Well, one of the universities.
Loud,
Here, for your graduate. University of Technology, Sydney.
Much louder.
You got to
Louder.
point right into it. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because of my hearing aids, I tend to talk softly.
Better yell.
I'll use my command voice.
There you go.
There you go.
That's better. Much better.
I did a week-long master class at UTC, master's level. It was how to build an airplane that's sourced in a lot of different countries as civilian aircraft. Anyway, this hat I'm wearing is propitious. This emblem is 50 years old. This is before the Apache became the Apache. This is the YAH. I guess Y means experimental. So this was going to apply.
Louder.
And
Louder.
well, can you increase the volume?
No,
that's
you
better.
got to speak into it. Don't put it below like that.
Speaker,
There you go.
Perfect.
is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So really, everything I learned in the hobby shop about new product development. And I'm not going to talk about that. You've heard about that. The first part of this deck explains to people how I got where I am today. So for 45 years, I've had my company, RPM Systems, taught a lot of different things in prior presentations, and Steve enumerated some of them. I'm really a new product development guy. That's my forte. And because Boeing owns the Apache program, it's a very, very successful program. They have, they're still in production. First flew in 1975, and they're making new ones today. So, well, that's all I'm going to say about the Apache. It plays well with A-10s. So this is the Boeing factory in Everett. And on the 17th of May, my Rotary Club up there, they periodically, we take every 5 years, we take the Rotary Club and their kids up to this factory. I'm going to be at my daughter's graduation. So I can't attend this. But this is very interesting because they're essentially only making one aircraft in this huge factory at this point. And all 787 production is now in South Carolina. It's not. And they have stopped manufacturing the 747. They've got a tanker program. They've got an ASW program based on the 737. And that's about it. But, as you know, that you follow this thing, they just got awarded the next generation fighter program, which is huge. They are still trying to recover from the debacle of the two astronauts stranded up on the space station with the Musk rescue. And I'm going to show you a lot of slides. Well, actually, but just talk about why I've been following Boeing for years. When I left Hughes for Architect Systems, I started getting phone calls from my friends that were still in the company when McDonnell Douglas acquired the Apache. And it was awful. The management that came in from McDonnell Douglas was General Electric trained. And that affected Boeing. When Boeing merged. Very complicated story. There's a lot of financial reasons why it happened, and it should never have happened. That integration, at least the way it did happen, because a man named Harry Stonecipher, who was GE guy, he's a bottom line guy, and that's essentially why the 737 MAX program is such a disaster with the way they tried to implement it. So with that as background, so what I've done is, for many years, I was a member of the Project Management Institute, and they have global conferences all over the world. And I spoke about maybe 6 of them. On different subjects, but on several of them, beginning of 2005, I started talking about Boeing and the 787 versus the
That's my dog.
A380, and they were just concepts. They haven't had any management. And I just thought that the A380
So we're not sure that
it should not have even been in the first place. And of course, some years ago, they stopped all production on that. And the 787 is the aircraft. But I saw that happen. I knew that in 2005 and had published paper to prove that this my position. And this is where all the parts are sourced. And things that happened was I forget the name of the facility in Wichita that built the fuselages. They sold them. They said, you know, we don't want to manufacture airframes. Somebody else can manufacture our 370 airframes. And they recently had to buy it back because of the quality programs. And when you manage subcontractors, if you squeeze them too hard or you don't watch them carefully, the quality went to hell. And Boeing was supposed to buy it back. So this was the overall scheme. For building the 87, it was such a huge technological leap in all fiber that all these major subcontractors contributed to it. They helped fund it in the development phase. So this, I put this presentation together almost a year ago, when Kelly Ortberg became the CEO of Boeing. And the first thing he did was he moved his headquarters from Chicago. That was a very stone cycle, moved out of Seattle. Moved it back to the state of Washington. And as I read Ortberg's biography, he's the guy. He's the guy who lets people. And their results they just published a few days ago were better than the analysts expected. Now, I'm gonna speak randomly here as the thoughts come to mind. And it may not be in the right sequence, but what happened in the last couple of days, actually yesterday I read about, China just returned a couple of 737s. They were in China, the stage, ready to be delivered to the airline. And because of the trade war, China sent them back against the Russians. That's fine. It's a great market for those that Boeing will have no trouble. It's a big backlog. And so China will probably have more Airbus. That's fine, as long as Boeing has market for their aircraft, and I believe that should be fine. So Ortberg is the guy to watch, and I'm pretty high on him. I think if anyone has a chance to really have Boeing prosper, he's a very human guy. He's not a GE accountant. But this is the people. All right, this is their stock price. I don't know what it is today. I didn't expect to do this presentation today, so I didn't update this slide. I can't hear. So I think Boeing's going to be fine. The bottom line. That's a very interesting photograph. And on the left, photo. On the left, that's Harry Stonesider. In the middle is Phil Conway, who was the president of Boeing at the time of the merger. And Stonesider was the head of McDonnell Douglas. And next, on the far right is John McDonnell. So I personally met both McDonald's. I've had lunch with John McDonnell in St. Louis, and at the Rainier Club in Seattle, where I gave this presentation, we had Phil Condit, who's in the middle, as a presenter, and he was he's a fine engineer, a fine person. And unfortunately, they were just taken over by a bottom line company. And one of my jobs, Apache, had a number of jobs, but I had complete oversight on the Apache. I didn't work for the Apache program, I worked for the president, and I had a technical staff. And under our launch, we published a weekly technical report about potential problems of the Apache. We built 3D models before there were PCs or where the money was, so we could move money around in order to complete the prototype programs. We had a complete handle on the Apache. There were no surprises. The two-star who went to Congress was never embarrassed with any surprises. So as I watched this mature, and having met the two men, my opinions solidified. Now, this is very interesting. I was invited to teach again in Australia, not UTS, but Queensland University of Technology. It was a master class for Australian and New Zealand citizens only, and they're primarily military and procurement. I taught 1 week in Brisbane and 1 week in Canada. And these are the students who were flown up here. And this is at Boeing Everett, this Florida. These are a mixture of my students and Boeing folks. And they're being briefed by Boeing. And this was right at the time where the 787 battery had a heat and fire problem. And Boeing was completely transparent about what the problem was in the 87. And then we got to do something that was really unheard of. If you go on the Boeing tour, you are up on the walkways looking down on the factory. We got to walk on the factory floor. We have a picture of us standing in front of one of these massive engines, one of these nacelles that towers above us. Okay. So this just added to my understanding of Boeing. All right, so there's Phil Condon. That's me on the left, Phil in the middle. And I talked to him about the 787. I said, you know, with the Apache program, we started with a clean center line. We had technology we developed, like four-bladed rotor system, which Boeing, Bell didn't have. Their blades weighed 500 pounds, two-bladed system. You needed a crane to change the blades in the field. Ours, four-bladed, light, and completely, you could change them in the field with 2 people. So I had that conversation with Phil, and I said, you know, shouldn't you have started with a clean center line on the 37 instead of going with the 37 Max? Because they had a very good 37 new before that. And they just didn't have the money to do a new star aircraft, which should have been a composite aircraft. And they would have just owned the whole market had they done that. So we had that conversation. Now, the guy on the right is a very, very good friend of mine. He's a 06 flight surgeon, still on active duty. He is the senior flight surgeon in Alaska. And I called him last week. I frankly think he's in the Diagonal Garcia right now with the refueling tankers with the B2s. He's deployed fairly often. Okay, let's talk about what should have been the new star as far as I'm concerned. So fuel efficiency drove this decision. You can see here the line, by the way, the book on the left is a great read. It documents all the decisions, incredible bad decisions. And, you know, I was not the most popular person on the Apache program, and I would stand up and brief what I thought. And I had complete freedom, thanks to the president of the company, to say what I thought was going to happen. This was an incredible tragedy. The engineers, senior engineers, were totally cowed into doing these, making these incredible bad decisions. It was driven by the fact that there's going to be no problem introducing this new 737 Max. You don't need to go into the simulator again, which is very costly. The pilots and 2 foreign airlines that crashed were ill-trained. They didn't understand the override system, the MCAS system. Our pilots here just flip a switch and turn it off.
A lot of people may know that.
They didn't know that. So that's just one of many, many bad decisions on this. They allow the airlines to have only one sensor, attitude sensor. And it should be at least double redundant or triple redundant.
Is that, you're on some very good stuff here. I just, you're encouraging thought. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So is there any truth to the fact that they found after one of these airplanes crashed with the single sensor on the front, that they actually had a bird strike? Is there any truth to that?
No.
Okay.
But here's it was remanufactured by an unauthorized user.
Okay. Okay.
And one of them was miscalibrated also.
Yeah.
So just everything that could go wrong.
So don't rely on these airlines, because can you imagine what their maintenance was like if their pilots had 200 hours in the right seat and their captain had 1,500 hours in the left seat? Don't get on these airplanes.
Yeah, the 37 Max pilots also could love the aircraft. No problem. Those American pilots.
Oh, come on now, you can't say that.
Well, no, they found.
And Canadian pilots. American and Canadian pilots are fine in here.
Yeah,
Canadian pilot.
you are.
Yeah, yeah.
You fly
I'm asking, right?
37.
I don't fly anymore.
Well, did you fly commercial?
Yes,
What do you fly?
6-7.
6-7.
It's supposed to be on the 8-7, but they were having battery problems.
You got an answer.
And the wing did fit.
Somebody's
I
listening.
retired.
Yeah. On West.
See. So this is just more of the same. Corporate culture, cost pressure, the MCAS system, lack of pilot training, awareness, regulatory oversight failures, design issues, you name it. This is a classic study of not only if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. There were so many places for it to go wrong. It's just amazing that this even happened.
No, I don't want to take your thing, but with the engineering, you can hear me better than him. With the engineering debacle they had with, I think it was the 767, or 787, the fuselage didn't make to the center section. This was a precursor to this, and there was a lot of red flags and warnings about Boeing's engineering, correct?
Here, use that.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe this don't work.
Got an old deaf pilot's in, talk loud.
Yeah, it's
Well,
on.
that's that, Mike, I think.
Don't let me interrupt. I just want you to comment on that.
No, this is impromptu. I didn't plan to
Well,
be here.
I know, but it's interesting, driving through the Boeing plant about 10 or 12 years ago, the road goes right underneath the Boeing plant, right underneath the taxiway and the ramp. And you could see all these, I believe they were 787s tied down with no engines on them, the big concrete blocks, and I think I counted 18 of them. And it was actually one of the biggest failures in engineering, probably in the history of aviation. I mean, there were billions of dollars worth of jets out there that the center sections did not fit the fuselage. Is that true?
Yes, I am not an expert on that particular, but I know it's true.
Yeah.
And then I asked, how could that possibly happen? I know all about paving goods. And I just can't understand how something like that could happen. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
Is that current, the stock price?
Pardon?
Is
No,
that current
that
today?
is about 5 months ago.
Does anybody have Boeing stock? I do.
Yeah.
It's
what is
been
it?
whipsawed to death.
You know what it is now?
I don't even want to look.
It's 174, up $2 today.
No.
That's up from 162 on that.
All right, oh, wait, just a minute. Now, you think your voice projected.
It's nice to have an open discussion, he's unpacking a lot of stuff. Huh?
174.64 day.
Okay.
Up.
Space City. There was one other failure. A couple of days before the second, he started running. They
Wow.
had another thing. And there was a pilot flying jump. And he realized that the way the system told the elevator was turned in. So the right side of the dive was heading down over, and see. Failure was to get full. Circulated that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely, and
No
the
jam?
fact that Boeing took so long between the two crashes to get the word out is unconscionable. I've seen things like that happen, for example, when they were submarine, nuclear submarine, they lost a nuclear submarine because they didn't get the word out. It was a battery, that had a membrane in it. They ramping up production, they brought a third vendor on the line, and the batteries were failing in the test site. And what happened is, when the torpedo was launched, that should break the membrane, and then the battery becomes active. Well, this third emergency subcontractor didn't pass that test, and they didn't go back to the fleet. So.
That thing that Dan mentioned about the fuselage and that meeting, was that because it was built by somebody else?
Yes.
Spirit?
Incompossible.
Well, no, they've been built in Japan.
You know, they used to air freight these, it's interesting, some of my buddies at QB were ferrying the parts of the planes over, I think they flew for Atlas, and they were ferrying the parts over in that big ugly 747 that looked like an afterthought, but they were bringing the parts over, and they were, yeah, the center sections were manufactured, I believe, Japan to spec. And in the 747, I think every center section for every 747 was made in Japan with it.
Northrop.
No, I believe that's true, yeah.
I think Northrop built them in Hawthorne.
Fuselage section.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the center sections, I believe, were all built in Japan. It's very interesting if you guys have ever been to the Boeing plant. The logistics of getting those parts up from the rail yard, from the port of Everett, is just unbelievable. They show up on trains, complete sections of fuselage, and they used to have covers on them 50 years ago that said that, I believe Northrop was building some of the center sections, some of the sections, the fuselage sections, but that 747 plant is incredible. It's too bad it went.
One of the, just add for. Very fortunate in the people that, been very fortunate in the people that I have known and had as house guests. One of them was Brian Weigel. He was head, you know, why do you know Brian?
Can't hear you.
Louder.
Put it in your mouth.
Fuselage, there you go.
You
should have,
All right, so Brian Weigel was our house guest. And I have a fantastic video of him. So he was the chief of flight test. He flew the home in
Burma?
the two engine.
The C-46 or DC-3.
DC-3, yeah. He flew the home into China. And so we had a house guest and we had him speak to our rather large rotary club. And his claim to fame was he actually flew with Howard Hughes. And you remember one of my talks here was flying with Howard Hughes. You wouldn't want to. Okay? And well, he was Kilboy. And Harley Baird was his flight engineer. And Howard was deaf and on trucks. And he wanted to fly the, 707 prototype, it's called the Dash 8. And so they finally browbeat Boeing into sending it down so they could fly. And they're on a Palmdale. And Howard always does touch and goes, touch and goes. And they couldn't get Howard to understand that it's not a propeller-driven airplane. You don't fly it in like this, you fly it in like this, the landing. Okay, I'm not a pilot, so correct me if I'm wrong. And Howard almost took out the power from it. Howard came into LAX too hot and he blew a flap off. Okay. He gets on the ground, the FAA is waiting for him, and Howard says, "Go pay him off." That didn't work. Anyway, that's enough about Brian Weigel. Brian Weigel ended up managing 5,000 people at Boeing. He had not only flight test, he was in the right-hand seat on the first 47 flight. And that aircraft is at the Boeing Museum of Flight right now. You can go into it. Highly instrumented and so on. So he ended up being responsible for all the distance of 5,000 people. Quite a man, and I've got extensive video. And I think that is going to be the last slide. So, August 8th last year was when he was chosen. I looked at his bio and what he had done. He's an electronics guy. And what he did is he rationalized the avionics across aircraft. And he has a very good people leadership. What they do as soon as he came on board, the machinists went on strike, long strike, very costly strike. Can you say something about that?
Is he a lawyer?
No.
Oh,
He's
good.
an engineer. He's an engineer.
Lawyers had never built an airplane before.
No, that's one of my big things. When you see an MBA without an engineering degree leading a company, be very worried. And I have an MBA, and I am not capable of leading a company. I'm capable of oversight, but not making those decisions. So that's the talk. Well, that's the accidental presentation today.
Hey, you did great.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Is there any questions for Steve?
I could talk about Boeing all day long. I love the company.